Stories are the most powerful thing on earth. They are literally life and death. Wars are waged based on the story of who is the hero and who is the villain. You are the result of a story your parents told each other, the one-night stand, the soulmate, and friends who became so much more. Life and death. So wouldn't you like to understand them better, these stories? How Story Works, an elegant guide to the craft of storytelling by Lani Diane Rich, demystifies stories and helps you understand why you love what you love, why you hate what you hate, and why prologues are almost always a bad idea. How Story Works by Lani Diane Rich. Available on Amazon in ebook, audiobook, and paperback form. Get your copy today.
Welcome to Still Pretty, a Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast from Chipperish Media. I'm story expert and crazy freak Lani Diane Rich.
And I'm film scholar and vapid whore Noelle LaCroix. And we're here today to talk about Homecoming, the 5th episode of Season 3.
Homecoming aired on November 3rd, 1998 and was written and directed by David Greenwalt.
Someday I'll figure out a cool, smooth way to remind you all that Still Pretty is not spoiler-free. It is spoiler-full. So brace yourselves. Ladies, gentlemen, spiny-headed looking creatures, let's go on patrol. In Homecoming, everyone is making plans to go to the homecoming dance, but Scott Hope hasn't asked Buffy yet because he's the worst. Instead, he waits to be called out in front of all her friends in the way that maximizes her humiliation and then follows that pathetic shit up by awkwardly asking her to the dance because, see above, the worst! Later, Buffy goes to see Angel to give him blood and tells him that she can't tell everyone about him and he understands. Then she tells him that things are different. She's a senior, she's working harder in school and thinking about college, and she's involved with someone who's good to her and makes her happy, someone she can count on. And then we irony smash right into this bullshit.
I don't think we should see each other anymore.
As Buffy stands lonely outside the school, we see her framed in a binocular view. Two weird German guys are watching her from a van and sending the video straight to Mr. Trick and some old white guy in a wheelchair, who are working out a plan to take out the Slayer. Meanwhile, in the mayor's office, Deputy Mayor Alan Finch reports on the two weird German guys, and the mayor asks if any other colorful characters have come to town recently. At school, Faith and Buffy are training, and Faith asks Buffy to the dance, and we will talk about that later. It's not a huge plot point, but we will get to it. Also, it's picture day, but Buffy didn't get the memo because someone was too busy campaigning for Homecoming Queen to tell her. When Buffy confronts Cordelia about forgetting to tell her, things get heated.
I'm going to show you how it's done. I'm going to run for Homecoming Queen, and I'm going to win.
This is starting to be sad.
Sorry, Cordy, but you have no idea who you're messing with.
What, the Slayer?
I'm not talking about the Slayer. I'm talking about Buffy. You've awakened the prom queen within. And that crown is going to be mine.
As Buffy's planning her campaign, Mr. Trick is gathering a crew of vamps, demons, and, well, high-tech Germans to compete as well in SlayerFest 98, in which everyone competes to kill the Slayers. It's fun. It's competitive. It's branded with its own goddamn logo. Mr. Trick is a modern vampire with a marketing strategy, and we are here for it. Meanwhile, BFFs Xander and Willow are in her bedroom trying on their dance clothes. Willow fixes his tie, she tries on her dress for him, and all this time, after we put the romantic elements between Willow and Xander to bed, they practice dancing, and then this weirdness comes out of pretty much nowhere.
That didn't just happen.
No. I mean, it did, but it didn't.
Because I respect you and Oz, and I would never.
I would never either.
At school, Buffy and Cordelia both campaign for Homecoming Queen, and much fighting ensues. Willow and Xander decide that their guilt over the fluke made them overcompensate in supporting Cordelia, and now this whole thing with Buffy and Cordy has escalated because of them. They make a plan to trap Cordelia and Buffy in the limo, forcing them to talk and make up. What they don't know is that the Germans are driving the limo, and they think that Cordelia is Faith. Also, Buffy and Cordy fight during the ride and then are dropped off in the middle of a forest where somehow a TV and VHS player are set up and ready to go. They hit play and see this.
Hello, ladies. Welcome to SlayerFest 98. What is a SlayerFest, you ask? Well, as in most of life, there's the hunters and the hunted. Can you guess where you two fall? From the beginning of this tape, you have exactly 30 seconds. No, that's 17 now, to run for your lives. Faith, Buffy, have a nice day.
At the dance, Willow and Xander hang out in extreme guilt watching Oz's band play. Faith sees Scott Hope with another girl at the dance and identifies him as a sleazebag. Giles shows up with a joke about something terrible happening to Buffy, but he's just kidding, as he doesn't know about SlayerFest. Speaking of which, out in the woods, Buffy and Cordy trap one of the hunters and get the rundown on who's after them. Back at the dance, Faith steps between Scott Hope and his date and handles shit properly.
Scott? There you are, honey. Hey, good news. The doctor says that the itching and the swelling and the burning should clear up, but we gotta keep using the ointment.
In the woods, Buffy and Cordelia find an abandoned cabin and hole up to work on their defense. Cordelia freaks out, certain she's going to die. Buffy, however, has a solid plan.
We are going to get out of here, and we are going to head back to the library where Giles and the rest of the weapons live. Then I'm going to take out the rest of these guys, just in time for you to congratulate me on my sweeping victory as homecoming queen.
I know what you're up to. You think if you get me mad enough, I won't be so scared. And hey, it's working. Where's a damn weapon?
Buffy and Cordy talk a bit in the cabin while they wait for the hunters to attack, and Buffy explains that she wants Homecoming Queen so much because the rest of her life is basically SlayerFest all the time. Just as they're starting to understand each other, the spiny-headed demon attacks and Cordy fights him off with the best weapon she could find, a spatula. They run out of the cabin just as the high-tech team launches a grenade into the cabin. They rush back to the school to get the weapons, only to find Lyle Gorch and his vamp wife Candy waiting for them, with Giles knocked out on the floor. Buffy stakes Candy with the spatula, and Cordy handles Lyle.
Listen up, Needle Brain. Buffy and I have taken out 4 of your cronies, not to mention your girlfriend.
Wife!
Whatever. The point is, I haven't even broken a sweat. See, in the end, Buffy's just the runner-up. I'm the queen. You get me mad? What do you think I'm gonna do to you?
Just when they think it's all over, Buffy realizes that the corsages left in the limo for them weren't from the Scoobies. They were from the Germans, and they have trackers in them. Buffy uses the trackers to pull the Germans away and then sticks one to one of the Germans. Old wheelchair guy tells the Germans each to fire. They end up shooting each other dead through the wall of the high school. So we've got 2 dead Germans in the school and lots of damage, but it's homecoming. We've got priorities. Buffy and Cordelia head to the dance covered in dirt and sweat, but ready to hear the announcement for who won Homecoming Queen.
Hey, I believe we have a first for Sunnydale High. We have a tie. The winners are Holly Charleston and Michelle Blake.
Okay, Noelle, like last week, we had to pull up the patriarchy, into the top of the show. This week, what are you wearing?
Well, no, I decided to start with the clothes because clothes are a huge deal in this episode, and also because clothes are pretty much the only thing I like about this episode, which we'll get to.
All right.
But Buffy wears Angel's jacket to bring him his takeout, which kind of like sweet, but also kind of rude because she's also there to tell him about Scott Hope.
Well, also, he doesn't have that many clothes. It seems like you might give him back the jacket at this point.
He did find a shirt, though.
He did.
But after hundreds of years in a hell dimension, he can't remember how to button it.
I know. They use Velcro in the hell dimension. But
Such a bummer.
Peel away clothes, right?
Poor Angel. Poor Angel. But he's looking like himself with his open shirt. And yeah, maybe, now would be a good time for Buffy to give him back that jacket.
Right. Keep him warm.
He doesn't, I mean, he's not like comfy.
Oh, I guess he's always, room temperature, whatever that is, right?
Anyway, that is a detail of the whole, vampire sexy vibe that I'm just I
No,
can't.
it's weird
Room
because they're
temperature?
always cold. And what if a vampire is out in like, because I mean, the thing is, like, if you're in California, it's sunny all the time, but at least it's warm, you know, like at least you don't freeze. Like, what about the vampires that are out in like Alaska, like in the interior? The Fairbanks vampires, right, must freeze up like the permafrost every year and then thaw out. But, you know, when it gets warmer, that's got to be a whole weird thing. Anyway.
Anyway.
Pardon my digression. Yes.
That's fine. Anyway, Angel is looking like himself in his not button shirt. And then when Scott breaks up with Buffy, he's in blue and she's in pink. And we're doing this like ridiculous boy-girl thing, which I just, whatever. But it's, I mean, Buffy looks very cute with her pink top and her pink stacked heels and her pink purse. Like, she's very much sad girl.
Yeah.
And it's very, I mean, whatever, Scott Hope, but you know.
Yeah, we'll get to Scott Hope in a
minute.
Yeah.
Whatever. Mr. Trick is back, always a joy. And he's wearing what the mayor later calls an exciting suit.
Oh, yes. I love that.
I love everything Trick wears. Everything Trick wears is
I love.
so... Everything Trick is great. But I love that not only is he a modern vampire when it comes to technology, he's like a fashion vampire. He's got this look. And he's really... That's part of his brand. And I dig it.
Yeah.
When we see Buffy and Faith training in the library, they both look fantastic. I love that Buffy's actually dressed in athletic gear.
Right.
While Faith is wearing shorts that she clearly cut off herself. And those stompy boots, those like knee-high stompy lace-up boots that she's wearing. I mean, Faith is never not herself.
Yes. And I mean, she can be fashionable,
so
but not wear stilettos. Because she's dressed to slay in all possible interpretations of that phrase.
Oh, yes.
You know, I love it. Yeah.
Oh, yes. And they just look delightful. I love the contrast between them in that scene.
Yeah.
I love that scene. We'll talk about that scene when we get to that scene.
We will get to that scene.
Oh, we'll get there. Xander and Willow trying on clothes in Willow's room is such a wonderful, wonderful moment and such a horrible moment at the same time.
I know.
Oh, and I love it gets this ball rolling.
Yeah.
That I can't, I don't know. But
it's a very conflicting scene for me too.
It's hard to watch, but it's so well done. And I love that we get this line about Xander's suit, that he borrowed his suit from his only relations with money, and they shun us, as they should.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack about Xander's family in just that little line.
I know. It's wonderful. That is how you build the world. That is how you get that exposition, and it's fantastic.
I love that. I love that densely packed line. I love that we're slowly getting a sense of Xander's family.
Yeah.
And what the family dynamic, or really lack thereof, is in Xander's life. And maybe kind of why Xander is as awful as he is sometimes.
Yeah.
But Willow's dress 3-beat. I cannot decide how I feel about Willow's, like, you know, because that third dress is so perfect.
Yeah.
And she looks so good and so, like, grown up and sexy, but in a really understated kind of way. But the things that lead up to it, it's like this weird button front over a slip dress kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then her second dress is looks very Willow to me. Like, it looks like Willow dressed up for a night out.
Because it's got all those like flowers on it, and it's got all this color. But then at the last one, it's that black thing, and it's completely black. You know, and it is the least Willow of all the dresses, and that's the one that gets Xander's attention. I find that interesting.
Yeah. Well, because she looks grown up.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very, there's something very grown up about that
Mm-hmm.
boat neck with then the low back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fantastic dress, but I also I don't know. Like, it doesn't seem very Willow, and I have a hard time believing that Willow would choose that.
Right, but that's the one. Like, that's the
Yeah.
one that makes Xander kiss her. And that's the one she chooses to wear to the dance instead of one of the ones that Xander didn't respond to as much. That seems a little bit telling that that's
Yeah.
the choice that she would make.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's a lot. There's so much to Willow. I mean, full stop. Willow knows how to tie a bow tie.
I know.
I mean, what?
Where did this come from? Oz doesn't wear bow ties.
Well, that's like a real.
Yeah.
That's a very specific skill.
It's a
I mean,
grown-up
and we
skill.
know
My
Willow-
guess is that her dad wears them. Maybe she's been helping her dad with bow ties all these years. Not that we ever see her
Maybe.
dad. Not that her dad actually
Maybe, yeah.
exists. We have no idea. Yeah.
But again, like, it puts her very much in that, like, adult glamorous woman space.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I have so many feelings about this scene. But I love that Willow and Xander seeing each other in sexy grown-up terms is about the clothes.
Mm-hmm.
They both look very unlike themselves.
Right.
You know, it's a clothes fluke.
Mhm.
And that's what it takes to sort of shift things for them. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, no, it is really interesting.
When Buffy is campaigning for
Mhm.
Homecoming Queen, she wears a gray A-line dress that is the best thing she has ever worn on the show ever up to this point, and I will hear no disagreement.
That's
It
pretty
is
great.
Amazing.
Mhm.
It is so good. I love it. And Buffy's homecoming dress is adorable.
It is really nice.
She looks very sweet. Cordelia's is downright glamorous.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
Mhm.
And I just love that they're opposites.
Yep.
Coral and emerald, or red and green if you're not as
Right,
fancy.
but they're a little bit off. They're not quite red and green, which would look weird. I think maybe look very Christmassy, but there is something about these, these slightly off that standard primary color wheel, colors that have elements of that to them, but still have their own personality. I think it's really neat.
Mm-hmm. And the dresses kind of coordinate, but kind of don't. It sort of reminds me of something that, like, I don't know, Jane Russell and Marilyn Monroe would wear if we were doing,
right.
Gentlemen Prefer Blondes too.
Right.
I don't know. That's just, but that's just me. That's where I go. I go to the clothes because there's not a lot in this episode that I really, really love. I'm just kind of like, why the whole time?
God. This episode for me, I had so much to say about this episode. And I mean, it's funny though, because like you say, you don't like it. And when you first said you didn't like it, I was like, she didn't like Homecoming. And then I'm like, I kind of get it. But, but to me, like, I love it in a lot of ways, and then some of the stuff, even the stuff I don't love, I kind of love. But one thing that I absolutely don't love at all, and I'm not conflicted about at all, is Scott fucking Hope. Can we talk about this for a minute?
Absolutely. He remains a cardboard cutout of a human being.
He is
and
the
I
worst.
do not understand Buffy's monologue about him to Angel.
No. Well, the only thing I can think of when she says that to Angel, I think she's just trying to like present him as like this really great thing so that Angel knows that like nothing can happen between her and Angel. But I'm going to get to that in just a minute because we're starting with Scott Hope.
Okay.
We're getting the terrible stuff out of the way first. So I just want to get it out of the way up front because I don't want to waste any more time talking or thinking about Scott Hope for the rest of this podcast. This is the last Scott Hope rant. This is it. Doesn't ask her to the dance because clearly he's already asked someone else and hasn't told her yet. Breaks up with her in the goddamn school hallway like an asshole, just the worst. Then a few days later is at the dance with his other date. No, classy, Scott Hope. Real fucking classy. Oh, but he'll vote for Buffy. Isn't that sweet? Fuck you, Hope.
Right.
So I love the way that Faith handled it, though. I mean, I love that, he's such a prick. She goes up to him with his date, talks about the whatever sexually transmitted infection they happen to share. And it's absolutely wonderful, and it's a great way to say goodbye to Scott Hope. Although we do get a Scott Hope mention later, way later in season 7's Conversations with Dead People, when Buffy is fighting with Holden. So here's a clip of that.
I heard a lot of rumors about you back then. You were all mysterious.
I was?
Well, you were never around. A lot of kids thought you were dating some really old guy, or that you were just heavy religious. Scott Hope said you were gay.
What? I dated that ringworm.
He says that about every girl he breaks up with. And then, last year, big surprise, he comes out.
Oh my God, Scott fucking Hope is the absolute goddamn worst, and I hate him. I mean, I just wish in this episode that they'd had Trick turn him and then Buffy could fight him and say, you know what, Hope? Keep your eyes open, and then stake him through the fucking heart. That's all I want from that. But he's gone. He's gone. This is the last we're going to see of Scott Hope.
God.
We can release him
Good
without love and just let him. Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out of the hellmouth, Scott Hope.
Boy, bye.
Boy,
bye.
Bye. All right, so moving on to better things in this episode. We get very, very little of Angel, but I actually really kind of like this scene. You know, we get this one scene, although it's weirdly over-dramatized in places. I think to make it seem like Angel is angry or upset with Buffy. There's this moment she asks him how he is, and he says it hurts. And then he says less, you know. And then like when she's talking about I'm seeing somebody, he turns on her suddenly and she's all like tense about it. But then it's just to like straighten the collar on her jacket or whatever. And ordinarily that's the kind of mislead stuff that I would call bullshit on, except that I think that in this scene we're so strongly in Buffy's POV, you know, that she's so tense about telling him this and what is he going to think and how is he going to react, you know. Which I find... like Buffy's sense of guilt and responsibility for what happened with Angel is something we play in this episode. We also play this kind of like passive, she's waiting for Scott to ask her to the dance when she clearly wants to go. You know, he breaks up with her and she's just like, well, what did I do wrong? You know, instead of being like, hey, you're an asshole, you know? And so like this idea that she... you know, it's an implicit message, and I think this is an implicit message that women are generally given, and I don't know that this is deliberate. It feels more like terroir to me, but like this idea that that she needs to please these men, and when she fails to please these men, regardless of how terrible they might be, and I know that Angel losing his soul and becoming Angelus was not his fault, and that when he doesn't have his soul, he can't really be held responsible for his actions because, you know, he's under a possession. He gets the possession exemption, you know, so there's that kind of stuff. But the idea that Buffy feels so badly about that, and that when she says, I'm seeing somebody, and he turns on her, she is expecting him, like she's flinching. She's expecting him to like hit her or be mad, and almost thinking like in the way of her body language and the way that she's talking to him, almost acting like he would have a right, you know?
That whole exchange feels pointless and weird to me. Like I don't believe anything she says in that scene, and I don't believe that Buffy would come to Angel to be like, yeah, I'm working really hard in school and I'm seeing this person who's really good to me, who I can count on.
Right,
like,
so we can
not
have the
lose
irony
his
smash.
soul. Like what the But like what?
Yeah.
Like
and Scott Hope is not any of those things.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
He's not. We hear several times that he's charming and that he's, you know, great.
Right. It's all informed charm. It's not
all,
actual demonstrated charm.
He's fine. He's a cardboard cutout of a human. Like I
he's
just
not
don't.
Fine. I mean, Noelle.
Well,
let's not do that.
Can you not? I mean,
he's repulsive, but he's a boy, and he gives Buffy her value because we all know that a woman without a man has no value.
Oh my God! But I just that whole so. My point is that whole exchange with Angel, I get that we're deep in Buffy's POV. I actually really like the way it's framed.
Yes.
Where we're looking at Angel's face and she's looking at his back, and we see her all small in the background and he is huge in the foreground, and that's how she is feeling.
Yeah.
At this moment, that she's carrying this giant secret again about him, because keeping a huge secret always works and is always really good for everyone involved. Like, I don't know. This scene did not land for me on a number of points. And not just the, like, Scott Hope is such a great guy part, but that she's telling this to Angel. I mean...
Yeah, see, I get it. Like, I get the whole thing. I get exactly what she's doing here, because the last time we saw them together, right, he saved her life and then collapsed on the floor, weeping and holding her and saying her name over and over and over again, right? And that is not a just friends context. That is a... So I think that, like, what she's doing here is I mean, a lot of this, too, and I think that, like, I completely see your point, is that it is audience information rather than necessarily the conversation that she would actually be having with Angel. But part of it is, you know, it's her saying, like, this, whatever romance we had is over. Like, this is not happening. And she does this whole thing with, like, you know, I'm in school now, I'm doing really well, I'm happy, I'm moving on, you know, and I am under the possession of a boy. Which means, right? It's that thing that women often have to do, which is because you're uncomfortable rejecting a man because he might kill you, right?
Right.
So when you say that,
I have
you
a boyfriend.
I have a boyfriend. I have somebody else who has you know, branded me with a fiery poker, right? And now I belong to him. And because I am henceforth possessed by another man, even though it's Scott Hope, technically male, I guess technically he meets the requirement of being a guy so that he can possess me and own me. So it's not my fault because I am simply a possession, right? So you can't be mad at me. Yeah.
If the poker is fiery, though, you get that looked at. Like, really? That should not... it should not be.
Well, he's got the ointment, so it's all right.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's what she's doing here with Angel. And so I kind of see it. It's terrible.
It's the back off, man, I have a boyfriend thing, because guys will respond to I have a boyfriend more than I have feelings and they're complex and I have a life and all of, you know,
or
you know,
more than,
I just don't wanna.
Hey, you went bad and killed all my friends. So I would really like to say that this right now, and I get it, you got the possession exemption and all of that. I'm still highly traumatized by this experience that I had with you. And I'm not ready to be anything other than friends, but I'll bring you pig's blood. So this is her stating the boundaries of the relationship.
Right.
But while putting it on everything else aside from, like, actually having a conversation about what happened between them. And and I get it. Like, you know, as women, like, I think we've all done that at a certain point where we felt like we weren't sure that we would be safe having that conversation. But, you know, he's a vampire, she's a vampire slayer. I think she'd probably be safe. She killed him once. She can probably do it again. And so I don't know, like, it's there are these implicit things, this very, like, female experience of that, you know, hey, just to let you know, this isn't going anywhere conversation. Where you have to put it in a context of, you know, it's not you, it's me. I'm in high school. I'm looking at college. I'm really happy. I am under the possession of another male. So these are all the reasons why this can't be any more than a blood delivery service at this point, right? You know, and I mean, like, I get it. But it's still, it is a little weird. It's also not part of the bigger story, but we get that moment in there where we hear, I'm not telling anybody about you, and therefore I'm keeping a secret. And that is laying down the tracks for a conflict that will come, of course, later in the season. So we've got that, but you know, I get your point, but I also kind of, like, see what's happening here. And I love watching David Boreanaz in pain. There's something about, like, okay, his brooding is something that I actually, like, have very, very little patience for. But in this very particular instance where he has very recently lost his soul, killed the friends of the woman that he loves, and tormented her, then lived for 100 years in a demon dimension of a constant torment, then came back feral. Like, I get the brooding here. Like, I'm with you, Angel. You're going to need some time to unpack this shit, and I get it, and that's fine, But this is one thing, though, that I was a little curious about, is that, like, when he's all feral, right? Mm-hmm. He could track her down and save her from the Jekyll Hyde guy last week, right? But when a group of demons and vamps are doing this very splashy SlayerFest 98, he's what? Catching up on Dawson's Creek? What is he doing? He's just in the cement mansion. Like, this seems like the kind of time where he'd be like, wow, I kind of think Buffy might be in trouble. Like, maybe I should go help her out. But that's not part of this story, and I get it. But the thing is, like, he's not part of this story, so why do we have this scene at all? Aside from giving us the irony smash into the breakup with the guy she can count on,
Yeah, because boys, I don't know. I don't know.
It's all weird.
There's a lot in this episode that I don't get, not from a storytelling perspective, but from a life experience perspective, because homecoming and similar school activities are to me like sports.
Yes,
I understand that they're very important to other people, and I do not get it. Like,
and they were never important. Yeah. I mean, I went to a couple of dances, but like the whole idea of homecoming is something that it feels like a relic from the 50s. Like that people like homecoming is when, of course, the people who graduated, the alumni, come back for the big game, and then there's a dance and all this kind of stuff, and it's and the homecoming queen thing. Like, I get it. Like, I know that. Okay. Do I get it? No. Do I know that it happens and that it's important to some people, just like sports? Yes. Like, I'm absolutely with you on all of that.
Yeah.
Like,
and I feel bad because I can see, we've got Buffy and Cordelia, and this is like really important to them. And I'm just like, I don't care. Like, I'm sorry.
Like, I don't understand that whole thing. Right.
Yeah. But, it matters to them.
Right.
And I don't know. And part of it for me is I don't like to see the girl on girl hate. Like, I know that is a thing that happens in the world, and it's a great way to move a story along, and that's some good conflict. But I always just feel like, really? Like, this is
what we're putting our energy into. And also, like, at least they're not fighting over guys, so I guess there's that. But now they're fighting over something else. And I have to say, like, this whole thing, I mean, the title of the episode is Homecoming. The whole thing, like, revolves around this event, this homecoming dance, you know? But for the central conflict of this episode, I mean, this particular, like, whole premise about the homecoming dance and Cordelia and Buffy being in competition for homecoming queen really feels like little more than a pretense to get Cordy mistaken for Faith, and to underscore once again, like, Buffy's need for normal girl experiences. So, like, in the sense that homecoming represents, like, the high school girl thing, right? I guess, like, I understand it from there, but in and of itself, it does fall, I think, kind of flat for me. And that may be because, like, I didn't care about it in high school. Now, in middle age, I'm certainly not going to care about homecoming, So, like, it doesn't particularly speak to me. And I think that it really is mostly a premise, just so that we can get these moving things where they are, and then have Buffy and Cordelia in prom dresses fighting demons, which is always fun. I enjoy that part,
Great aesthetic. I love the aesthetic of girls in formal wear with shotguns. I mean,
I think it's
Kimmy.
Fantastic.
That's great. But the whole, like, I see that they have conflict. I hear that they have conflict, and I just, I don't care.
Yes.
Like, I get that Buffy wants a normal life. I get that Cordelia does not want Buffy's life. Even though she's, like, really, really stellar at kicking ass when it comes down to it. But I just, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Okay, guys.
I get it. But I do really like this moment with Buffy and Cordelia where they're in the cabin and they're actually starting to talk, and Buffy has this incredible speech, and I love this. So we're going to go ahead and play that.
All I wanted was to be homecoming queen.
And that's all I wanted too, Cordelia. And a year's allowance on this dress.
I don't even get why you care about homecoming when you're doing stuff like this.
Because this is all I do. This is what my life is. You couldn't understand. I just thought, homecoming queen, I could pick up a yearbook someday and say, I was there. I went to high school, I had friends, and for one moment, I got to live in the world. And that'd be proof. Like, proof that I was chosen for something other than this. Besides, I look cute in a tiara.
And the thing is that, like, at the end, you know, we have a couple of these little twists, right? We have this moment where they're covered in sweat and dirt and their hair's a mess and their dresses are torn, right? And they get in there and then Cordelia starts setting it up with, you know, after everything that's happened, this just feels pretty damn important. Yep. Yeah. And they both just completely agree on that they still very much want this particular accomplishment. And of course, now we've set up this situation where we have, you know, two people in mutually exclusive. If one of them wins, the other one of necessity loses. So we're in this moment where we're like, oh, which one is going to win, you know?
Right.
And then they do this really fun twist that actually I quite like at the end where he's like, oh, we have a tie. And you think it's going to be one of those things where they're like, both Buffy and Cordelia won and everything's okay. That ends up being the two other girls, which I absolutely love. And they're all like, oh my God, I can't believe it. This is so wonderful. And Buffy and Cordy are like, I don't even with this, right? So I love that twist.
It's a great twist. And speaking of twists, this episode of Still Pretty is brought to you by TrixTrix.com. TrixTrix is a state of the late 90s art marketing agency built specifically to meet the needs of the modern vampire. Need to take out a Slayer? We'll do a logo, branding package, and even give you theme music on the house. Need a red velour suit to show that you're a vampire with a thirst for blood and impeccable fashion sense? We'll hook you up with a demon tailor who can fit the suit to your every contour and make it holy water resistant. Need to outsmart a mayor bent on turning into a giant snake and ruling the world? The giant snake thing never ends well. We recommend getting the hell out of Dodge before someone stakes you. Go to TrixTrix.com using the code ScottHopeIsTheWorst and sign up for your free trial today. Well, it's kind of free. We do require that you sign in blood and commit your soul to us should a Romani curse return it to you in some weird fluke of vengeance. But seriously, what are even the chances of that happening twice, right? Or you could choose to take the couple of bucks you might spend on that sweet, sweet VHS setup in the woods and give it directly to Chipperish Media instead, so we can keep our Slayers lousy with tiaras and you lousy with the great podcasts you love, like Still Dead about Angel the series hosted by our very own Lani Diane Rich and Dr. Kelly Jones. Listen Up A-Holes about the Marvel Cinematic Universe hosted by Lani and superhero scholar Joshua Unruh. Orgasm about explosive inspiration from Dr. Kelly Jones and yours truly, and our Star Wars podcast, Metaphors Be With You, hosted by Rob Hyrat. Aside from the comforting knowledge that you're keeping Chipperish shows available to all as a Chipperish Media patron, you also get to join in our Discord chat where really smart people who love stories and go above and beyond what we can viably discuss in our shows.
We only have an hour, folks.
Patrons also get access to exclusive content like 2 Host Minimum, our upcoming podcast where we mix and match Chipperish hosts to talk about patron-requested movies, books, and shows. Coming up, Shaun of the Dead with Lani and Rob. And someone's going to make Joshua Unruh watch a romantic comedy. Go to patreon.com/Chipperish and sign up today.
TrixTrix.com. Scott Hope is the worst. That's what
Scott Hope is the worst. Yeah.
Scott Hope is the worst. But you know who's awesome is Faith. Faith. So here's the thing. Very, very clearly, right? First of all, Faith, I think we can agree. Well, okay. Mr. Trick and the mayor in this episode are really pretty great, but Faith is pretty much the best thing about this episode, right?
Oh, agreed.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Oh,
yes.
So agreed.
I love how she manages to ask Buffy to the dance after Buffy gets dumped by Scott Hope and then covers up with the stud line. So I'm going to go ahead and play this clip.
Screw him, all right? You move on and you party heavily and you'll be fine. I mean, you're still going to that dance, right?
Maybe.
We got the tickets already. Why don't we go together?
I don't know about that.
Come on, we'll find a couple studs. We'll use them and discard them. That's always fun.
Okay, I'm in. Not the stud using part, though. Or probably not.
All right, so she is so clearly like, this is the kind of thing that it's so clearly her being like, hey, you know, you want to go to the dance? I mean, you know, we can find a couple of studs and dump them or whatever, but, you know, like, she's
makes me so happy.
Clearly, like, oh my God, it is wonderful. But I think I'm going to hand this over to you because I get the feeling that you're going to have a lot to say about the Buffy Faith relationship.
I have so much to say about the Buffy Faith relationship. I love it so much.
Yes.
I've talked about this a little bit already. I love them as foils for one another. But they are flirting from the get-go. And I mean that first, like, about to be a fight between Buffy and Faith is very sexually tense.
Yes.
There's a lot of, like, flashing of eyes at each other and I'm like, oh, this is a little bit heated. And then when Faith is talking to Buffy about Scott and boys and the tingly feeling, it's very much, she's really testing the waters, you know.
Right.
And Buffy says, hello, and she says, you tell me. And I mean, hello, flirt. And I don't know, I mean, Maybe I should probably just speak for myself, but I feel like this is a thing that queer women do with other women of sort of like testing the waters a little bit. Like, let's talk about things that are sort of sexually charged about boys.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Boys. We'll talk about boys. Like, I feel like I don't know, and maybe I'm alone in this, but this is a thing that happens, and I love it. The like test, the sort of feeling each other out, so to speak. But I love the way Faith says super casually, "We could go together," and she kind of turns her head on the side a little bit.
There's that vulnerability there that is suggestive of something. And I have to say, like, here's the thing. I grew up as a straight woman in a straight world. So, like, I had no clue about any of this. And even in my first, I don't even know how many watchings of, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, never saw like this, they're just good friends and they have fun together and then they hate each other and it's fine. I can completely see it now. And I can absolutely see how these are those testing the waters kinds of discussions. And now, like, I feel really bad because I don't even know. Like, women could have been hitting on me my whole life. I'd never have any idea because I'm like, I'm sorry. I was a straight woman raised in a straight world and I just I didn't see anything. Like, I was so blind to everything, and now I can see it. And it's so, first of all, it's awesome and 100% support and I love it and go for it. And that's great. And I think Buffy and Faith should have absolutely had a romance at this time. I understand why they didn't do it, but whatever. But I mean, I think this is beautifully written from that perspective. And I don't know, like, as a queer woman, when you saw this, I mean, did you feel seen by it?
I saw it for the first time. I didn't see it for the first time when it was airing. I don't, it's funny. I don't think I saw the queerness in the Buffy Faith relationship as obviously as I do now. And I think some of that is just age and experience because, I wasn't like I was out in high school, but I also had a lot of internalized homophobia to work through, as I think a lot of queer people do.
Well, sure. Society trains you to do that.
Yeah. And it's hard to untangle a lot of that stuff.
Sure.
Something that I definitely appreciate now is what's the word I'm looking for? The Buffy is very receptive in this really, really compelling way. I mean, you know, Faith is super vulnerable and says, you know, we could go together. Like, she makes this offer that's vulnerable either way, whether it's a flirt or not. I mean, it obviously is. But even if it's not, like, they're not that close yet.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a, you know, that's a really vulnerable position to put herself in. And Buffy says, I don't know, and gives her this, like, little, like, her eyes sort of fall.
She kind of likes the idea, though.
She likes it. She's clearly never really considered it, but she's really intrigued. And what I love about that response is it's not a no. She's thinking about it. She's never thought about it before. But it's not completely uncomfortable. It's not a, I don't know, like, there's not a no homo kind of moment in there.
Right. Yes. There's none of that panic, which I love.
I really, really appreciate that. You know, because it's such a queer relationship, just in the ways that they're kind of trying to figure each other out.
Right.
And, you know, you mentioned the idea of a Buffy Faith romance, and I know that there's just pages and pages and pages of fan fiction out there. However, I have this proposal, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to come up with this, but Buffy, a big source of Buffy's pain is that as the Slayer, she has this life that is terrifying and dangerous and isolating, and nobody really understands. She says it often about various situations that she's in.
Nobody can know.
No one can know. They wouldn't understand. Faith would understand.
Yeah.
Faith is someone who could really validate her experience, which I think is something that a lot of us look for in, you know, a romantic partner, is somebody to say, yes, I see you. I see your life. I understand what it is that you're feeling and what you're going through, and I will go through that with you. And Faith is really the only person, certainly at this point, really equipped to do that with Buffy.
Yeah.
So there's definitely the bones of a really great romance / love story there.
Absolutely.
And I'm kind of sad that it doesn't ever pan out that way.
Right. Well, and you know, the thing is, and I'm about to spoil something that actually is not in the show. It's in the comics. So if you don't want to be spoiled for the comics, you can skip ahead. But if you're listening to this, you probably already read the comics. So anyway, but in the comics, in season 8, we actually have, because like Buffy being the clueless straight girl, I think is pretty clearly laid out here, you know, but in the comics, we do have a moment where she has a relationship with a woman for a short while, although in the comics, and this is the thing, like I love the idea of this being a relationship of Buffy's sexuality being fluid. That's great, you know, and the ability that Faith has to connect with her on something that absolutely nobody else can connect on her with. I think that that's fantastic. I love all that. I didn't like it in the comics, and the reason why I didn't like it is because it felt like the male gaze lesbian relationship, that it was like, oh, isn't this sexy and cute, as opposed to, you know, isn't this an interesting space to take this character, right? Because the thing is that girl on girl stuff can be very, you know, centered around pleasing this sort of like titillating this male gaze space, right?
Yeah.
So that's the only thing about it that with Buffy and Faith, the thing that I like that they didn't do it, because I fear that if they did do it, it would be that. And I like that it's done in this kind of subtle way that sort of explores this, you know, this like, in the closet queer experience. Not that I understand that, but I like, and I feel really bad because any woman who's ever hit on me, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I had no idea. Actually, I don't know when men are hitting on me either. I'm terrible at picking up those clues. I never think anybody's hitting on me, and I don't figure it out until way, way later. But like I think that I love this with them, and if it had been handled poorly, if it had been handled as a titillating, like, ooh, here's girls kissing for boys to appreciate, I would have been really disappointed in that. So the fact is, the way that it is represented, even though it is never really fulfilled, I think is better than them screwing it up and making it all about like, oh, look, the hot girls are making out for boys, right?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like in that space with it. And that's what I felt like when I read the comic book, that's what I felt like they were doing. And it really pissed me off because I was like, no, if you're going to explore this space with Buffy, explore it properly. And, and it's drawn in this comic book style that just felt exploitative, So yeah,
I'm not familiar with the comic books, but I'm not at all surprised.
Yeah,
and
that's how it felt to me. Maybe it's
really
just the way I read it, but yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, if it looks exploitative to you, it may, that's a valid
how it felt
interpretation.
To me.
Yeah.
That's how it felt to me. It felt like less something we're doing that's interesting with Buffy's character and more something we're doing because, ooh, look, we can make Buffy kiss a girl, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and when we
the exploitative
get
of LGBTQ is something that no, they're just people having a relationship. Let's build the relationship. And the relationship is so beautifully built here. That foundation is so beautifully built.
And we do it so well with Willow and Tara later.
Yes.
So like the way that, I mean, we'll talk about that more when we get there.
Right.
But the way that relationship builds really slowly and sort of, oh, what are we doing here? Is
over
wonderful.
A combined understanding and interests and things that they have in common, like that's nicely done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Buffy and Faith would definitely, certainly at this point, be I'm hot, you're hot, let's be hot together.
Right.
Which, there's value to that, but
there can be.
I get it. But I mean, and then on the other side, we've got, I'm vulnerable, you're vulnerable. Let's be vulnerable together with Xander and Willow.
Oh, Xander and Willow.
So vulnerable.
Oh,
so
my
much
God.
vulnerability. Oh, my.
This is okay, here's the thing. I'm just going to come right out and I'm going to admit it. I completely shipped Willow and Xander the first time I watched this. And I still I remember when she was bad, the season premiere for season 2, right? And they had the little moment with the ice cream and he was about to kiss her.
Ice cream on the nose.
Okay,
oh my God.
They have tremendous chemistry together, these two actors. Willow loves Xander, so I have transitive crush momentum. I love Willow. Willow loves Xander, so hence I want Xander for Willow. It is the transitive property of the crush on somebody you love. So all of that stuff, I was into. And during this moment, okay, everything in this scene in the greater context of all of Buffy is wrong. And I'm with you. All the people who hate it, I get it. I get why you hate it. And you're right. But the bottom line is this shit works for me and I love it. I love the two of them together. I love the chemistry that they've got. The moment when they kiss, I feel that yearning with them. And it works for me because of, I think, mostly, honestly, the actors rather than the characters and where they are. So I'm going to say, I know it's wrong. I understand everybody who hates it. I understand, I'm with you. I understand he's wrong for her. She deserves better. She's got Oz, who's a million times better. It's shitty of both of them to cheat on Oz and Cordelia. And it seems out of character, at least for Willow, although with her historical love for Xander and how much she has loved him and wanted him all these years, I can see how she could be in this moment, a little overwhelmed by it. And let's face it, they're all in high school. They're not married. It's shitty to cheat, right? But, this kind of thing, you're so young and here's this guy that you've been in love with forever and you're still figuring yourself out and all this kind of stuff. I get it and I love it and I enjoy it. And I'm not going to lie. I watch that when this scene is over, I rewind and I watch it again every single time because I love it. And that is my private shame. I know it's wrong. It's okay. The whole storyline is weird and unnecessary, but it does end and culminate in Lover's Walk, which is freaking amazing, and I cannot wait to get that. And that's 4 episodes. This affair with Xander and Willow feels like it lasts forever, but it's like a Scott Hope +1. Scott Hope felt like it lasts forever too. That was 3 goddamn episodes, and 2.5 way too many. But this is 4 episodes, this Xander and Willow thing. And I got to say, like, I can't help it. I do enjoy it. And that's just going to have to be I said my private shame. It's not my private shame. It's my very public shame now.
Now it's your public shame.
Now it's my public shame. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. But I think there's something like, yeah, it's not great. And there's something about seeing a friend in a different light, especially a friend that you've loved for a really long time. And I mean, they've known each other since they were 5. And now here they are, like, all, it's senior year, it's the homecoming dance. They're like getting all fancied up, and it's like, wait a second.
Hello. I know, but the thing is that we've had this. Like, they've been building this romance. Like, first, Willow loves Xander. Then, we have Willow finding out. Like, we have the moment where he's going to kiss her in When She Was Bad, right? Which clearly they are about to kiss. Like, whether it got interrupted by a vampire or not, that isn't something you can just ignore. They were totally about to kiss. And then at the end in Becoming, when he says, Willow, I love you. I know you don't read that as romantic. I read it as a romantic confession, especially because it's interrupted immediately by her wanting Oz. So I read that very much as a romantic confession. So in this moment, but like by the time we got here, like me as a shipper of Xander and Willow, I had given up. I was like, all right, fine. They dropped it. All right, fine. Let it go. Because Xander had been kind of like, Xander's like, thing with Willow where he doesn't want her until she wants someone else, and then he's going to go and fuck up her life with it. Like that's shitty. So all of it, I get it. I know all you people who are yelling that it's terrible. I know. I'm with you.
It's awful. It's awful, but it's so great.
But when it happens, so I kind of love it. Okay, so you like it too?
Well, I love
out of context.
Okay. I hate this scene. And I hate the ball that it gets rolling, but I love this scene because they're so sweet and they're so vulnerable. Yes. And I mean, they're changing clothes. I mean, Willow has her privacy screen, but still, like, it's this very
an intimate moment. She's
and,
tying his tie. I mean, that's completely intimate. And he's talking about, his family and all of that stuff, which is incredibly vulnerable. Yeah.
And dancing and oh my God, like it's just. And Lisa Loeb is playing, which is just not fair. Like that's just I hear what you're doing.
Right.
Like it is a wonderful scene. I absolutely love it. And it's a horrible scene for this thing that it puts in motion. And I just but you're absolutely right. They have all the chemistry. They have all of it.
All right. So here's my question for you. Lisa Loeb is playing, right?
Yes.
So either that is diegetic, which means it is actually in the scene. Somebody put that record on and Xander and Willow are listening to it as they dance. Or it is non-diegetic, which means it is playing, that it's something that we put in, that was put in after the fact, that is not actually playing in the room with them, but it is playing for us because it is giving us a sense of the space. Now, here's the thing. If it is diegetic, which means it's part of the scene and they're listening to it as they dance. If that's the case, then one of them put that song on, and none of this is a surprise for that person, whoever that may be. If it's non-diegetic, it's simply setting the scene for us. Now, the fact that they are dancing indicates that there might be music actually playing. So I think that this music is diegetic. I think it's in the scene itself.
I think you could make an argument either way. I think you can make a really strong argument either way, because I totally believe that Willow would be listening to a Lisa Loeb CD. Like, I absolutely...
Right. So if she put that CD on and she's in the room with Xander changing her clothes and showing him all of her pretty dresses, is Willow making a play?
I don't know. Maybe unconsciously she is. I don't know. It's
yeah.
Whew. It's some complicated stuff, man. That's
I don't know. I mean, it's a question, because they both act like this is a huge surprise. But I mean,
they do.
If you realize that Willow put on that Lisa Loeb CD before they started changing clothes together, I think that Willow maybe was not as surprised as possibly it may seem.
That's also a really intimate setup. Like, hey, want to come over and try on our homecoming clothes together? Like, what?
Well, they're best friends. I mean, if they were two straight girls in a room together, we wouldn't even think twice about it.
Right, because women are allowed to have a different kind of intimacy in their relationships, which is why girl on girl doesn't count. I have a rant about that for later in the show.
Okay, no, I can't wait to hear that.
Later in the run of Buffy, I should say. Not later in the run of... later here, but
we will have that discussion.
We'll have that.
Yes,
we have that to look forward to. That's good fun.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a super, super intimate scene. And yes, I understand that they're best friends and all of that, but like, wow.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
It's a lot of intimacy. It's a whole lot of intimacy.
Yeah. And that particular soundtrack, you know, I mean, if they had like Smash Mouth playing, like, you know, that would have been an entirely different thing. But yeah, right there. No, that was a little bit much.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know. That's a question. Diegetic or non-diegetic? Hashtag still pretty. Find us on Twitter. We want to hear from you. All right. So next, I want to talk about the mayor. We don't get a lot of the mayor in this episode, but it's the first time we see him. It's the first time we get to see Harry Grainer chewing the freaking scenery as the mayor, and it was worth the wait, and I loved it.
So good. He's so good.
So good. It's so good. It's not even the best of the stuff that we get from the mayor.
No.
Like, this is just the beginning of it, but I love the whole germaphobe thing. Then we've got Jack Plotnick. Of course, the actor plays Deputy Mayor Alan Finch, who will, of course, become hugely pivotal throughout this the course of this story.
I love Alan Finch.
Alan is so great. When he's like, show me your hands, and he puts his hands out, and he looks like he's waiting for him to, like, stab the letter opener through them or something. Like, this is an unpredictable office environment. I get the feeling.
I watched that. Like, he's so...
I know. Please don't stab me, Mr. Mayor. Please don't stab me. I love how they characterize the mayor. You know, while the antagonist basically, like, the antagonist only has one job, to block the protagonist. That's all they have to do in order to be narratively functional. But a great villain is fully characterized, interesting, and their goal is about them, not about the protagonist. And I love all of this stuff. I also love this moment, right, at the end of this episode with Alan, when the mayor says, "You have all my faith," right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, are they teasing the Faith heel turn right there? You know, and I think that, I don't know, maybe it's just a coincidence, but I'm sorry, when you have a character named Faith in the show, you have to be conscious of every time you use the word faith, not in the context of her name, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, death of the author, that's what I see, whether they did it deliberately or not.
It feels deliberate.
Yeah.
For what it's worth. I was like,
oh my God. And then at the end, when he pulls in Mr. Trick, right?
Yes.
And he's like, this is a big year for me. And Trick goes, election year. And he goes, something like that. And I'm just like, oh my God, you're going to turn into a giant snake demon. That's what it is. Oh my God.
And this is why I struggle to follow politics, because it's like, is it an election year? Is it a giant snake year? I don't know.
Sometimes, like 2016, you really get both.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, you absolutely do.
We can clearly see that shit happens. Oh God. But anyway, okay, so now I guess is a good time to talk about Mr. Trick.
Yes. And Trick is just the thing of beauty. Joy forever.
Love him.
Mr.
Again,
Trick.
You know, he's an antagonist. He's a narratively functional antagonist, but he's so much more when he's built to be a villain. God, I love the fucking lollipop. I swear to God, that is one of my favorite little details for him.
Lollipops are a thing on Buffy.
Lollipops are a thing.
We see Buffy with a lollipop pretty often, and I really, really hope it's not like a Lolita thing. But even Giles gets in on the lollipop action later on. So I don't know. Are they flagging for something that I don't know about? Like, what's happening here?
Well, lollipops are candy on a paper stick, and paper's made from wood. No, I don't know. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. Like, it's just cute. And the thing is, yes, when Buffy does it, when she's so young, when we're remembering Buffy and she's got the lollipop, and it does have a Lolita vibe, and that is disgusting. But with Trick and with Giles, even when a grown man has a lollipop, it speaks to almost a childlike delight. Like, you cannot have a lollipop and be depressed. I mean, in real life you can. In real life, you can, but a grown person with a lollipop on TV, like that is a symbol of embracing life and enjoying things no matter how ridiculous they look, right? You know, it kind of has that vibe to it. And I freaking love it in this episode. I think it's so fantastic for him. And also, can I just say, here we have a modern vampire with a T3 line getting 2,500 megs per, right? SlayerFest has goddamn branding and a logo, and he sets up a TV and a VHS player in the middle of the fucking woods. And where is the power coming from? A generator? I have no idea what, but you know what? I don't care because it is unbelievable. It is so cool. He must have the world's longest extension cord.
That's what it is.
Reaching out there from somewhere. And he set that whole thing up, and I freaking love it, you know? And like the mayor, Trick is really well characterized. I mean, bad guys who are just snarling and all, I want to kill this Slayer, are not really that interesting, you know?
Yeah.
And while we had a good villain in Spike in season 2, I mean, as our villains go, I mean, the Master was pretty good too, but like we're seeing like more characterization of these villains in a way that makes them more charming and more interesting and more kind of beguiling. And I just freaking love it.
It's so much fun to root for them too when they're these fully realized characters. I love a villain that you can root for and just get excited to see. And once again, Trick brings up the issue of race.
Mm-hmm.
Just barely.
Yes, a little bit.
Just barely.
Bit.
And this feels like a very late 90s approach to tackling racism. Like, we're going to talk about it without really talking about it.
Right.
And of course, we're going to give all the work of identifying the issue to the black man. But
of course.
I think it's interesting and noteworthy that Trick talks about, you know, being asked to leave. And
right. And I also like that he is not at all interested in leaving. And he's like, you can go ahead and ask me to leave, but I'm not gonna like succumb to that. You know, I love that.
Yeah. And the mayor says, you know, you're gonna, whatever it is about, you know, working.
Yeah, I'm gonna get you on my team. And he's like, what if I don't want to be on the team? He's like, I don't anticipate that's gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
And he pulls him in, and I love it. Yeah. I love the whole thing.
Trick is fantastic.
Trick is absolutely fantastic, and that goddamn suit, the exciting suit.
The exciting suit. It is exciting.
It is a thing of joy. Absolutely.
It is exciting.
All right, so now we have Giles. We can talk a little bit about Giles. There isn't a lot of Giles in this episode, but I love how he goes to the dance. I know, poor Giles get knocked out again. But I love how he goes to the dance to support Buffy. And he's like, whatever the outcome, I want to be here, you know, when it happens so that I can support her. And I was like, oh, that's really sweet. He's sitting there with the finger sandwiches. And he's not wearing tweed for like the first time, I think maybe ever. Maybe except for the football game. No, I think he was wearing tweed at the football game. Yeah.
I wouldn't leave it past him. But I mean, Giles, like, he got shot in the butt with a trank dart last week, and now he's unconscious on the floor. I'm just Giles.
I know. He got shot with a crossbow with Jenny that one time, right? He got shot in the ass with the tranquilizer. He gets knocked out all the time and needs to be checked for traumatic brain injury. You got to take that shit seriously. If you lose consciousness, it is not good. I just think that he should be walking around with I think he could wear a hat, right? Or a bicycle helmet or something, because he knows he's going to get hit in the head.
Oh,
a little prevention is, you know, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, man.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, true. Oh man, poor Giles. But yeah, he's in full dad mode, wanting to support Buffy, and he makes that joke about Buffy's in trouble. And I'm like, really? Like that? I like the idea of Giles joking around, but it doesn't feel very Giles to like pull a Buffy's in trouble when she's not really. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I like him trying to be part of the celebration by making jokes.
Right.
Like, oh, that's so sweet.
So cute. I think these finger sandwiches are actually made up of fingers.
Yeah.
It's really cute.
Yeah. He's trying his hand at the dad jokes. And
yes, I know.
It's admirable. We appreciate it. We see your effort, Giles.
Right. And you know what? It's his first thing Like it's his first try. Like, you know, you get a chance to screw it up before you really get going on the dad joke thing. And that's fine.
Yeah,
you know, it's not his natural milieu, right? All right, so we're pretty much done talking about like most of the show. I have a couple of things that I want to bring up. They're high school things.
Sure.
One, we see this all the time in high school movies that take place in California, and it freaking fascinates me. Schools that have their insides outside. The lockers are outside. The Harmony stairs are outside. All of this stuff is out. Like, they've got a whole bunch of the school that is outside. And like, the thing is, I grew up in New York where you cannot be outside for like half the year. And to me, the idea of these California high schools, which you see in movies, because like everything takes place in California, it's all shot in California, all the high schools they're working with are in California, so they all have to have this nice weather, and they've got this outside stuff. They did it again with Easy A, the Emma Stone movie from 2010, and it always fascinates me, because I'm like, how does this work? How do people have their lockers outside? And apparently you grew up in California. That's
did.
like a thing.
I grew up in Southern California. Yeah.
And your high school's insides were outside.
Yes. Yeah. Parts of
Mm-hmm.
the inside of the school were outside.
Oh my God.
Lots of like courtyards and open spaces and, you know, walking from class to class outdoors.
That's all year long.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are 2 seasons in Southern California. There's summer and not summer.
Right.
Although
summer and kind of summer, right?
Summer and kind of summer. Well, and I mean, really, like actually the seasons are fire, flood, earthquake, mudslide. I think those are the, you know,
the 4 horsemen of the.
Right.
God.
That's what they don't tell you
God.
about living in
Oh,
Southern
God.
California. It's like,
Yeah.
but yeah, lockers outside. I think even my middle school had lockers.
Oh my
outside.
God, that fascinates me.
Yeah.
It fascinates me. I just can't, you know, and I did some college in Tucson. I was finishing up my degree remotely in Tucson. And so I took some classes out there. And I remember there being like, you know, like the classes would just be like, you'd go from one trailer to another trailer. Like they had, like, you know, and I'm like, I'm just walking around outside to get to my classes. It's weird. It's weird. You know, that the actual entrance to a classroom is outside. It's all really weird. But anyway, that's a lot of time spent talking about something that doesn't matter. One thing that I did love in this, though, is the little moment, and it's really easy to miss, when Buffy is talking to the teacher, who, of course, didn't remember her, you know? And she says, you know, yeah, I was in your class, Contemporary American Heroes from Amelia Earhart to Maya Angelou, the class that changed my life. And I was like, I love that they're teaching feminist history, right, at this school. B, I love that Buffy loved it. Like, I love that Buffy was into it, and this, you know, changed her life. I think that's awesome. But it's so sad that the teacher would forget her. And I was like, would you really forget her? Like, if a student is absent a lot, like I remember. But then I was thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, high school teachers have hundreds of students every year that they have to keep track of. Like, it's hard enough keeping track of the ones who are there. I have like 15 a semester that I gotta keep track of. So when one doesn't show up, that stands out to me. But I was like, oh my God, it's so sad that, you know, Buffy was into this class and loved that class. And then, you know, and the teacher didn't remember her.
Yeah, it's really sad, and it rings really false, especially because her name is Buffy.
Her name is Buffy. You don't remember
like,
that.
How many Buffys? How many Buffys do you have?
I don't know. Southern California in the 90s, maybe 6 or 12, right? Maybe.
No, I think it was Jennifer's. I think it was
Jennifer. Oh, Jennifer was the big name. There were 14 girls in my class named Jennifer. That was the Sarah of my time. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but I love that our two, can it be a 2-person list? But our range, Amelia Earhart to Maya Angelou, there's not a dude in there. There's no dude name.
I mean, that's a feminist history class. That's absolutely what that is. And it's not
American
that
heroes.
long. That's like an entire semester, right? And the range from Amelia Earhart to Maya Angelou is like, I don't know, 40 years, 50 years maybe. So, I mean, that's like, you're going to have a whole semester full of women from just that one period.
Yeah.
We're looking at a lot of women. You know, we got some Eleanor Roosevelt in there, pretty sure. Right? You know, that's a pretty cool range. And I like that it's a short range that has enough women that we're discussing that fills up a whole semester. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty great.
So I was very pleased with that. It was a small moment. It was a tiny thing. I was very pleased. But let's go ahead and transition this into Arg the Patriarchy because
oh god, I mean, without getting into like the patriarchal, the heteronormativity of things like a homecoming queen. Although we do have 2 homecoming queens and no homecoming king in this episode, and I have to say I am here for that.
Absolutely.
But we've got this old white guy with technology putting himself in exactly no danger at all, saying, I am the future. And I just that was such a record scratch for me of like, oh no, sir, you are going down.
Oh no, except he is the future.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
but
his guys die. He thinks he's won.
Yeah.
Right? At the end, when Trick is talking to the mayor, Trick thinks he's won. He thinks the Slayers are dead. Right?
Yeah.
So they're all laboring under that delusion at that point. And I mean, let's look at who's running everything right now in America.
Yeah.
He kind of was the future.
I know.
Old white dudes putting themselves in absolutely no danger with like bone spurs or whatever, who sit it out. Yeah, like I think actually he was the future, but he is not going to be the future.
Yeah,
I know it's 20 years later. We're still working on that shit. We're gonna take you down.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. I was like, no, sir. Your time is up.
Except tragically, he was right. Time's up now. So hopefully in another 20 years, we won't be having that same conversation.
Yep.
All right. So what is your girl power moment of the week?
Well, I love the idea of a high school having this contemporary American heroes class that uses apparently that centers women, which is awesome. But I absolutely love Cordelia and Lyle Gorch. I love her making full eye contact with Lyle Gorch in full vamp phase and monologuing. She's so badass. She's like
it's fantastic.
Cordelia brings out the prom queen in Buffy, but Buffy brings out the Slayer in Cordelia. And
hell yeah.
I'm here for it.
And we're going to see a lot of that in Cordelia as she evolves, and especially once she goes over to Angel and becomes a, kick-ass, woman over there. So, yeah, I like all of that. I think that's really, really cool.
Yep. So what's your favorite part? I'm asking you.
No!
I'm asking you to the dance. What's your favorite part?
I think it's when Faith asks Buffy to the dance. I think that's it. I think that moment of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And that moment of fuck that dude. Like all of that, like everything that Faith is in that moment, I just love. Like I love Faith overall in this thing is probably my favorite part.
She's yeah. I have a feeling that for a while, my favorite part of anything with Faith is going to be Faith.
Right, exactly. It's just going to be blanket Faith.
Is Faith in the episode? Faith is my favorite part.
Then Faith is my favorite part, right?
I mean, really. Asking Buffy to the dance is so great. But I got to give it to Faith cornering Scott at the dance.
Yes.
And she does it with such delight. She does it with a smile on her face. And the way she turns to his date and goes, hi, and then slaps him on the shoulders and walks off. I'm just like, yes.
Oh, he deserved that and so much more, but I love it.
I love it. And she just, she doesn't go to school with these people. She doesn't care.
I don't think she would care if she did go to school with these people. She is absolutely going to take that dickhead down, and I love it.
Yeah, and she looks perfect. I love Faith at the homecoming dance. That is so good. That's my favorite part. All right, that's it for today. To join in the discussion on Twitter, follow Lani at LaniDianeRich and me at Noelle Aloud, and use the hashtag StillPretty.
Or you can keep Chipperish Media going to the tune of $1 a month or more and gain access to the live chat in Discord, where you can hang out with me and Noelle and all the Chipperish patrons who get to go to the dance with Faith when their terrible boyfriend craps out on them. And trust us, that is an upgrade.
Oh, yeah. You can also show your support by giving Still Pretty a great review on Apple Podcasts, or by telling your friends about the show, or by taking this moist towelette and cleaning the mayonnaise from under your fingernails.
Oh my God, we're gonna be back down because I went band candy.
Band candy, which
to my voice.
Band candy might be my favorite episode. Full stop.
It is definitely one of them, and I am so excited. It's the 6th episode of season 3, but until then, we look cute in a tiara.
Oh, man.